Chris is an amazing, he's just a warrior for the planet. He's been leading the charge for a long time. Real estate agent without a car. I know that it probably said that in the thing, so maybe that's why you're here. Voted in the top 10 sustainable real estate influencers this year. Like, wow. And he's here with us today. I won't take any more time. I'm so honored that you're here with us, Chris. Thank you. Take it away. Welcome.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks. It's very nice to be here. And what a warm group of people to be introduced to. So nice to meet you all, and nice to see those of you who I know already. Brian, are you going to make me host so I can share my screen, or how does that work? I'm going to try and do that now. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And let's see if we can get this here going. Okay. And from the top. All right. So can you hear that? See that okay, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, good stuff. Again, thanks very much for having me. And it's a genuine pleasure to be here. I have been for 17 years trying to develop my own market niche practice in real estate around sustainability. So that might look like I really like having listings that have solar panels on the rooftop, or a really good walk score, or a bunch of undisturbed wilderness. All of those kinds of property really excite me. I've also worked to educate the real estate industry, and I'm going to talk today really about my theory of change around why housing matters and why real estate is where I've chosen to sort of bring together my passion for sustainability, environment, and people together with a business. And my business practice is real estate, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit about policy review and housing trends and general trends in marketing, and where human connection and trust come into play in the conversation I have with realtors around trying to get them to make this a central practice within their businesses. In 2019, I completed a master's in strategic foresight and innovation, and I looked within that master's program in my major research project at the impact to real estate from climate change. So you can imagine that coastal real estate in low-lying areas may be impacted due to sea level rise. We're certainly seeing flooding and wildfire being emerging into issues. So I did a very intensive 20,000 word study on that. If you really want to be bored and depressed, you can read it. But I'll give you a 3-slide overview of that and talk a little bit about flood in Toronto. But I'd like to start with a traditional land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge with deep respect and gratitude that we live and work on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of multiple Indigenous peoples, including the Mississauga of the New Credit, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. I'm committed to working on deepening my own decolonization in support of Indigenous self-determination and self-governance, and I strive to center inclusivity, reconciliation, intersectionality, anti-poverty, and climate justice in all of my professional and personal activities. Just like every realtor, I use pictures of myself that are way outdated. Kathy, this probably is what I look like when we met. This is where you can reach me. Find me on Twitter at Evolution Green, and don't ever hesitate to give me a call. I'm with Sotheby's Real Estate. Email is not the best way to reach me from a tactical perspective. Okay. So as Kathy mentioned, I was named top 10 sustainable real estate influencers 2021 by Mandalore Partners, which is a clean tech firm out of France. I have no idea how they found me or why they said that, but that was not nice. In 2020, the Canadian Real Estate Association nominated me to the Federal Sustainable Development Advisory Council. That's an advisory council that advises the Minister of Climate Change on sustainable development practices and policies. And I wasn't selected, but it was very flattering that my industry association put me forward to represent them in that conversation. So for 17 years, I've been promoting climate friendly, energy efficient, resilient, natural, local economy centered real estate. I teach the NAR, which is National Association of Realtors, green designation in Canada. And I'm hoping to launch my book in June 2021. As with all things book, it takes way longer than you think it's going to. So I'm trying to let myself be easy about that. So why property value? Well, property value is central to life, really. Property is where we live, work, and play. And whether it is the property that's owned by our municipalities and governments as a highway or a sidewalk or a park, or where if it's our privately held real estate assets, regardless of whether you live in the swankiest penthouse apartment or on the park bench, real estate is where you live. And 36 million people in North America own, rent, or borrow real estate, and it is an enshrined human right. In North America, additionally, real estate ownership is central to cultural status, personal well-being, upward mobility, and wealth. And so that includes equity-based conversations, as well as conversations about upward mobility and access to, let's say, owning real estate, which has been a big topic this past year. And so this is the conversation that I bring to the real estate industry. I really talk about, where does home energy and resilience come together within a home? Well, first of all, because we live in a cold climate in Canada, we do use burnable hydrocarbon-based fuels, which do have greenhouse gas emissions. So if you live in Canada, it's very likely that you're going to burn something in order to stay warm some months of the year. We also use electricity from plug loads and appliances and lighting. Water is energy, really. The city of Toronto spends more money on energy used for water than it does energy used to run the TTC. So energy is water and water is energy. And at a community level, we experience flooding and that is related to how much effluent we have coming from our homes and how much rainwater we're capturing on our lots. It's becoming an increasing trend, but passive solar and active solar are part of heating and cooling in our climate. Shading, windbreak, and native species are very important to building performance, and weather resilience and infrastructure. So weather resilience can be at a site level, where we, let's say, are very good at having good grading so that the water stays away from our buildings. And we share infrastructure. So areas where we have combined sewer and rainwater can create infrastructure failures that can create damaging situations for homes. This is the framework that I talk to the real estate industry about. And this is why it's important, because the real estate supply chain, which underpins that whole upward mobility, wealth, and health conversation that I was talking about, the realtor has a critical role. What is the critical role? Is it to make big commissions and put signs in lawns? No, it's not. But we do have a role, and it is that the MLS data system is the data system that allows us to track energy ratings, renewable energies, and resilient retrofit. So a resilient retrofit might be a backflow prevention valve in an urban context, or in a wildfire context, a fire smart assessment for a property, which basically removes flammable materials away from the house, effectively preventing or reducing the level of property risk when it comes to wildfire. And so all of these things are available for realtors to present at the time of listing. And when they do so, it allows for that data to be included in the appraisal of property. So if an appraiser is being deployed by a lender, then they can say, well, this property has an energy rating, and therefore we think it's worth X percent more than the average house in the neighborhood. Or maybe there's a lending discount for energy rated houses, like an Energy Star house. For example, if you buy a LEED condo in Canada and you do it with a high ratio mortgage from CMHC, you get 25% of your high ratio mortgage insurance back because you're buying a LEED condo. So insurance discounts and of course, consumer confidence. We hear stories about there not being full disclosure of risk around flooding and things like that. We also hear stories about people buying properties which are represented to be very high quality build and then having building failures in a short time after moving in. So consumer confidence is there. So the real opportunity is really listing houses that have high performance features like solar panels or really good building envelopes, and helping consumers buy those products with a greater sense of knowledge and understanding. This is really what fuels my theory of market transformation. If we get the realtors and the whole real estate community saying high performance houses are worth more, then that becomes part of a movement of consumer demand, which includes keeping up with the Joneses and all of the other fashion-based motions around capitalism. I'm going to now talk a little bit about policy overview, which includes putting a price on carbon. So I think that one of the trends we're going to see is that the cost of building new is going to go up. The cost of building new with wood is going to be relatively less than the cost of building new with steel, because the cost of carbon is going up. There's some other pieces that are part of current policy, and that they are decarbonizing energy supply, which is a little bit about fuel switching. So the way we see that in houses is, I got a call from my in-laws about a failed furnace. They said, "What should we do?" I said, "Get a heat pump instead of a furnace." They said, "Why?" "Well, it allows you to switch away from propane and toward electricity." They ended up just replacing their furnace anyways. But that's a trend that we're going to see the world switching towards. So less burning and more electricity use, reducing energy efficiency or increasing energy efficiency by reducing energy use in buildings. That's insulation and draft proofing. And then, of course, transitioning to low emission vehicles, and we see that across markets. So what actually happened? Well, 1.5 billion was allocated over 12 years to disaster mitigation adaptation fund. What that means is neighborhoods that are at risk of flooding or fire will have investment in some way to reduce that risk. 63 million is going to be made available to complete flood maps. In the US, you can go to a service called Flood Finder, put in your zip code, and find out whether or not you have an increasing, decreasing, or static level of flood risk. Additionally, $4.4 billion is being made available to CMHC for deep energy retrofit interest-free loans. So that's $40,000, up to $40,000 per household to do energy retrofits. That's a big investment in on Canada's housing stock to reduce energy use and increase resiliency. 200 million over 3 years for natural infrastructure. Woohoo! What that means is that the government of Canada has acknowledged that trees do a great job of reducing flood risk, and they are part of an infrastructure response for improved well-being and climate mitigation and adaptation. And that is a brand new idea. So woohoo to Canada. That's a really big win. And there is additional financing and funding for further climate adaptation measures because it's becoming an increasing risk factor. But ultimately, 59%, this is the drawdown method of looking at sort of where we have carbon synchronization opportunities and where we don't. And so 59% of the emissions that we have going out into the atmosphere are not synchronized, are not capable of being synchronized. So really, we have to work on reducing that if possible over time. And the good news is there's growing consumer interest in the real estate sector. So real estate is driving, or energy efficiency is driving interest in new homes. So new home buyers are walking into sales center asking, is this an Energy Star rated house? And what is the benefit to me? Tell me about the indoor air quality. Tell me about, why this building is going to do a better job for me. And 65% of realtors say that promoting energy efficiency in listings is valuable. And this is a US statistic, but I think it's very applicable to Canada. More than a third of respondents in this is a National Association of Realtors 2021 Realtor Survey on Sustainability Report. More than a third of respondents said that their multiple listing service had a green data field. That's where, for example, here at the Toronto Real Estate Board, there's a field that says energy certification, yes or no. And then I can put LEED silver for a condo, or I can put EnerGuide 80 or Energy Star for a home. And over half of the realtors that were surveyed said that their clients were very interested in sustainability. We do see some demographic segmentation in this way. That is, more millennials have this as a buying preference than do elders, but it's not universal. It's not like only younger people care about this stuff. It is across markets. But this is a mainstream idea. Bill Gates, the capitalist of all capitalists, the winningest winner in wealth, except for Elon Musk, the emergent winner. How to avoid a climate disaster. Mark Carney and Bill Gates are mainstream capitalists, right? So it is going mainstream. And really sexy graphic user interfaces and smart home technologies are making it easier for homeowners to understand how their energy can be managed and reduced and become more meaningful to them. Additionally, people are moving. I presented down in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, twice at the end of 2019, just before the pandemic. And there was a lot of conversation about where are we going to plan our migration of at-risk populations who are in places that are going to be underwater. I call this abandoning Atlantis. We know it's going to be Atlantis. So those people will be moving at some point in time, and realtors have a role to play in that transition. Technologies such as the Tesla Powerwall create resilience to power outages, and also opportunities for gaming time of use, energy prices. The Model S and all electric vehicles. I ride a motorcycle and always have. The Tesla is the only car that I've ever driven that competes with the driving experience of a motorcycle. And I'm really impressed with its performance capacity. This is not making a sacrifice for the planet. This is going for the sexiest, most self-interested, ostentatious option and getting the best driving experience as a byproduct of that. According to Sotheby's luxury trends, not only is green becoming mainstream, but millennials are becoming a growing force in luxury real estate. So we have an unprecedented wealth transfer between generations happening right now. And 45% of millennials of the marketplace are millennials in the luxury market, and they are demanding greener, cleaner, and more energy efficient products. And this is shifting consumer mindsets from, let's say, an eco-friendly mindset where the idea of a solar panel is something that would be rarely encountered in real life, and wouldn't it be nice to have a house, to one that we might look at as a commonplace renovation, where you'll notice that in a priority of amenities, private outdoor space and nearby parks, green space, biophilia, love of nature is becoming central, along with other eco-friendly features. Sustainable local food has been growing and growing and growing. And in the condo market, we saw a response to the condo market in the pandemic when people were locked down in their houses without any green space. We're going to see increasingly new condo builders putting more emphasis on the biophilic features of the building, including integrated living architecture. So imagine, a listing for a condo that talks about the bucolic view shed over the green roof of the neighboring condo. That's sort of the trend I see in our condo landscape, and how this grounds out in real estate. And again, this is what I talk to the real estate industry about. This is an example of what I talked to the Toronto Real Estate Board about on Earth Day. But the human experience has become much more acutely understood. This is a slide from the Global Marketing Trends by Deloitte, and what they say is that values and emotions and actions create trust. That's true of all of our individual brands and our brand experience, and it's especially true of the brand Realtor, which is really within a trust-based ecosystem. While it is a high wealth, that high wealth goes with a lot of trust. I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to talk about the research I did around 5 categories of risks. The property value in an era of climate change is the name of the study. You can find it at academia.edu or at Google Scholar if you want to read it. So I talked about 5 categories of risk: flood, wind, which is direct and indirect. That is direct, I get hit by the hurricane and suffer property damage, or something that's flying within the wind hits my house and then my property suffers property damage. Wildfire, drought, sea level rise and storm surge, and heat and drought. And here's what I found. Site level devaluation happens when acutely affected. That is, if I lose value of use because my house burns down or my house is underwater, then obviously I lose use of my house and therefore lose value. I'm presumably insured for building back the value of the house. However, I am not insured for any loss of value in the property itself. Neighboring houses and proximity to direct impact properties is as far away as 20 kilometers. And that's typically, ascribed to loss of amenity use or loss of access. For example, a road is washed out and I can't get access to my house, or the beach is washed away. And that's why I go to Florida. And so I don't have a beach, even though I didn't get directly hit by the weather system. I have a loss of amenity use, or the ridge across the valley from my home is burned out now and isn't as pretty to look at. So these are the kinds of impacts to real estate value that I saw across multiple categories of risk and across marketplaces. I also found that the severity of the initial event and its creates a memory. So the amount of press coverage, as well as the amount of actual lived experience. You might say Katrina created a long memory in the marketplace and a substantial amount of lived experience that is top of mind in that marketplace. And so the time that the market recovers is based upon the ability of that marketplace to forget. I came up with this idea, the real estate climate risk index. It's a walk score for real estate climate risk. Imagine being able to, go and buy a house, and let's say you buy it in a high and dry neighborhood in Florida, and you want to verify that. You put your address in, and you get a score that tells you, yeah, you've got reasonably good chance of avoiding the primary risks in your neighborhood. So I imagine that this is going to be part of the future of real estate in an era of climate change. Within 5 years, I'm going to estimate. One of the things that's alarming, though, is that the level of adaptation to growing risk from all categories is much, much slower than the rate of impact. So what we are continuing to see is that the impacts due to all categories of risk to property, which is costing us all money through our shared liability insurance, is much slower than the rate of change that's happening. And so here is the banner of heaven under which we can assemble. When it's a question of money, everybody is of the same religion. Voltaire said that in a context of, an era where we were supposed to defer to God to protect us from these things. But I'm going to say the same view works across political lines. When it is a question of real estate asset value, there is no reason to not go green from a policy perspective. So that's the story that I tell to the real estate industry in order to get their buy-in and get them to prioritize being active participants and actors in creating a market transformation. And this is where you can reach me. I am licensed to sell real estate anywhere in Ontario. I love rural places that are hard to get to. And I've spent most of the last year and a half on Zoom calls helping people discover where they're going to move to or which of their multiple properties they're going to sell in order to center their life toward what they've discovered is more important to them now.